Hey, you there. Thank you for watching, and welcome to Forged Lines Forever. Today, I have a 1v1 ladder match here on the most amazing Roxas map generator. So let's go ahead and introduce our two players for this game, starting off with Blindchick in Stitch Blue to the north. He is on, of course, Team 1. He's all by his lonesome, and he is facing Team 2's Scrat. He is in Ruby Red, and he is a Cybran. So it is a traditional UEF versus a Cybran match. They are in, of course, their customary colors for those factions. Let's go ahead and look at the reclaim. Our players have to scoop up, currently sitting at 7,000 mass. Now, normally I would say that's not a lot of mass, but for two players, that's 3,500 mass. That's a decent amount of mass to scoop up. We are seeing, of course, there's a decent amount of mexes around the main base of our two players. There's a couple of mexes kind of dotted around the map, and this is going to be definitely contested with 8 mexes. That kind of looks like a pig or something. There's like 2 ears, and there's the main body, and then those are kind of like the snout right here. Anyway, that is pretty much it. There's a little bit of water, but neither of these players have Team 1 hover tech units. So that's not really going to be an issue for either of them. There's a small gap right here, and then, of course, a decently sized gap for land engagements. I would presume that it's pretty much going to be either a 1v1 somewhere, or it's going to be a 1 versus 0 versus a 1 versus 0 scenario where one player goes on one side, one player goes on the other side, or they both face off against one another. We are seeing a couple of labs outbound with some scouts to be able to just start poking at these early engineers. And you can see they are doing some damage to the engineers. Haven't killed off that many just yet. That one was killed, but it did kill off an engineer. That one also killed off an engineer. So it does slow down Blindchick's early expansionary efforts, at least the exterior ones. He's already grabbed these 2 5-star mix positions. Same thing here with Scrat. We are, of course, seeing a little bit of movement here from Blindchick going west, and it looks like more forces being spread out kind of evenly here for Scrat in the east. So it does look like it's going to be maybe focusing on the southern side here for Blindchick, and maybe we'll see Scrat go east. Maybe he'll go west over here to intercept. There are a couple of mexes up here on these upper plateaus. I don't know if our players will go for those. I mean, it would offer a little bit of some height advantage. There is a couple of rocks up here. We are seeing transports, speaking of which, actually for Scrat going for said wrecks. So he is going to go for those first. And, of course, the spamming out of all of the T1 units to just get units on the map. Of course, with these 1v1, 2v2 kind of, smaller player games, getting up to T2, getting up to T3 takes longer because you're so focused on getting your mass online, getting front lines somewhat established, worrying about what's going on the other side of the map. There's so many other things that our players are worried about. Have to build an air force to, have some interceptors or T1 bombers. We are seeing just units being thrown together here and just shoved in Blindchick's direction over here. It does look like Scrat's going to go here on the east, and Blindchick is going to go on the west. If I can say his name correctly, I probably won't be able to throughout this game, but hopefully everybody will ignore that for the time being as I try to make my tongue work properly. We do see, of course, Scrat is over here, and all these units actually just avoiding the commander, going all the way around, and this isn't a possible kill. I mean, these units can easily kind of swarm together and then circle the comm, but he has a lot of support nearby. There's not that many tanks to really overwhelm the commander just yet, and he can, of course, walk into the water over here if he does feel overwhelmed. But the main focus, it does look like that Blindchick is trying to cut off any sort of reinforcements, but we do see that Scrat has built up a decent amount and is sending them in together, not sending them one by one to make them easy targets. And again, same thing over here. It looks like he's just sending a lot of forces to the west to delay Blindchick. Blindchick going to cut straight through the middle. Again, it's a small avenue. Small little valley there, but you can see the comm on the other side of it. Just kind of building some front line facilities. We do see that there is a transport dropped off some engineers here for Scrat to assist with getting his frontline facilities up online. And that transport looks like it will get shot down, unfortunately, but of course it will be on his side of the map, so he's not really worried about losing the mass for it. Those units continuing to get a lot of work done here, going after a couple of mechs, couple being one. There is a engineer just trying to build some wall sections to cut off those reinforcements. But I don't think this will do that much damage. These forces will be taken care of very quickly, and then these ones over here will be dealt with here shortly once a couple of Mantis come off the line to deal with those two strikers. T2 Air is online for Scrat. T2 Land online for Blinchik. He's going for a shield to probably protect himself on the front line. We do see that, again, just a lot of forces streaming in for Scrat just to establish a nice foothold over here in the east. Has to grab a lot of mixes. You can see there's a engineer, a couple of units here for Blinchik just causing some mayhem. Gun has been started for Scrat, so we can easily defend over there. These units have now been cornered. T2 online, of course, for Blinchik being able to just pump out damage a lot faster than his opponent. And that will give him a huge advantage in the land engagement. Having air, though, I mean, again, there are players, I mean, specifically in these ones, 1709 and 1635, that are way better at the game than me. But I do see a trend where, at least in this game, I can see right now, land is a huge focus right now for Blinchik. But for Scrat, he's going for air, and he has a T2 land facility online. But going for the air facility, yeah, he can go for T3, but I don't see that much focus for air for Blinchik, just giving Scrat the advantage, but not by much, because he doesn't really have any sort of T2 air forces online. We do see an air facility now online for Blinchik, though, and he is producing some Stingers. Stingers, while they're not the best gunship in the game, at least in the T2 department, they are, again, available to UEF, so you might as well use them. Stealth has been started for Scrat's commander, going to try to obscure his opponent's ability to see him on this eastern side. We do see that, again, pushing out more of Blinchik's forces. Again, T2 being a huge proponent in pushing back. Scrat, of course, 1,000 of anything can kill anything in this game, but having that much more firepower and hit points on the front line make it very difficult for T1 spam to really just punch above their weight. You need to have large numbers. T1AA trying to stave off this Stinger. Stinger looks like will get shot down, but that mech is gone. That is 2 mass a second that Scrat is losing. The mass income staying relatively the same, 80 or so per player. Not really anything in favor one way or the other. Transport laden with some units inbound. Are there any Medusa in the mix? Those look like it's just Mantis. And possibly they have been spotted. Who knows? They're going to land up here. They could easily have landed in here and tried to go after some P-gens. But it doesn't look like that is going to happen. We do see in the east T2 forces again now moving over here. Scrat with that stealth upgrade going to intercept those and get some nice efficiency for that commander. He's already at 1 star. And he's working on his second. We do see, of course, it is just kind of splitting down the map here. Team 1's Blinchik, or Blinchik, I should say. I'm just kind of so accustomed to saying Team 1 has the western side of the map, and Scrat has the eastern side of the map. And, of course, there is a Stinger gunship over here being chased down by an Interceptor, just trying to just dodge, but unfortunately, it just doesn't have the firepower to really blitz down that T2 mech. And that Interceptor is still on its tail. A couple more shots will do it in. T1AA nearby, and there it goes. That gunship is destroyed. T2 forces bearing down Scrat's neck on the western side. Eastern side, same thing. Scrat's being forced back quite considerably in the northeast, even though that's where his commander is. Blinchik not really pushing with his commander. Doesn't want to, and again, kind of overextend himself. He does have a radar system just to give him some early warning system. He does have T2, so 2,000 additional hit points. Now he's getting a gun online just to be able to use his comm a little bit more effectively against his opponent's forces. We do see a gunship over here killed off a couple of mexes, and that gunship will be shot down here shortly by some interceptors. And there's a lot of interceptors also online for Scrat, so that gunship is still protected, but there is a flat cannon nearby. Oh, it almost grabbed that gunship, but unfortunately not really a lot of damage can be done by those interceptors. There's nothing to fight. They can't transform into Corsairs essentially and then bomb everything over there. That is the downside with not going for those T2 Corsairs, is they can't use their bombs because there's no bombs on board interceptors. But speaking of Corsairs, they are inbound, so he has started to upgrade, air quotes, his air force with those units, or just augment. T2 still going to be the main source of air forces, and T3 has been started by Scrat. T3 has also been started and is almost done for Blinchik, and he still has T2 air as well. We do see that these units slowly pushing in Scrat's position. I feel like he's thinking if he can hold off with the T2 forces he has, he can come in with his bricks or his loyalists and really hold the line. In terms of mass income, Blinchik is winning by about 10 or so mass per second, which again isn't a terrible amount to be behind for Scrat, but it is something to be ahead for Blinchik, so it does make a difference. Every point of mass, every little, I don't know what they come in, bars or clumps or whatever of mass makes a difference. But of course, the main thing is can Scrat recover and get that discrepancy back down to 0, or even get it to positive. He has a couple of mexes to grab, a couple more mexes to upgrade at least the T2, and of course he's working on his T3 upgrades here shortly. Of course, the same situation can be said for Blinchik, and look, he has caught up a little bit. And there are a couple of spam facilities trying to be built to at least distract Scrat, but one has been dealt with, one is about to be dealt with, and this one is currently building. Engineers trying to build them over here, but I don't think they're going to get anywhere. Nano repair has been started by Scrat's commander. Going to be able to use that comm even more effectively with the nano repair on board. But now we see a counterattack in the west here. A decent amount of T2 units going after the western flank for Blinchik. He has to send his commander in, at least to assist. He's trying to intercept, but these units are going to move faster than his commander, so he's not going to be able to catch up. But he is building up a decent amount of forces with some shields and some T2 flak cannons as well to prevent any sort of Corsair bombings, or at least prevent multiple runs of them. You did send one pillar through, not Titan, and there's a parachute that will get wiped out, unfortunately for it. And T3 is online here for Scrat. T3 online here for Blinchik. So we have units starting to be produced in the T3 department. Nano repair half done, and there is Blinchik's commander pushing back those forces from Scrat. The income's still favoring Blinchik. He's starting to pull away a little bit, but every time he does, Scrat catches up, so it's kind of this rat race of how fast is one player producing than the other. And it just seems like Scrat's just a little bit on the back foot for that, but he's doing very well considering, of course, that, both of these players are really trying to, zoom over here and then do stuff over here and then do stuff over here. And then, it's the opposite for Blinchik. So these players are probably running around the map trying to do as many actions as they can, get that APM aflow. And there are some Corsairs inbound for Scrat. Going to probably target, no, could have taken out the radar system, but there are some interceptors inbound, and that fighter bomber is going to get ripped out of the sky. Second one inbound. Looks like that one might release its payload. No, it doesn't. Looks like it was going after that T2P gen, but unfortunately the death was not in the cards for Scrat. And we do see in the west those forces starting to be kind of whittled down for both of them, but primarily here for Scrat. T3, of course, is online, so we should be seeing some Titans, if not Perseus, here shortly from Blinchik, and some Loyalists / Bricks here for Team 2's Scrat. Of course, getting some shields to protect himself as well. And his P-Gen's definitely a smart move. He doesn't want to be sniped out of his power, which is what exactly he tried to do for Blinchik, but just didn't seem to work. Of course, there is a parashield to protect those two P-Gens, and we'll protect that T3 in a moment. And Blinchik has slowly started to push in. He's actually shifted his positioning from here to here to at least shore up those defenses on this western flank. He's sending just a couple of spam units through just to distract Team 2 and open up some doors with those walls, but not really sending his whole focus over here. He's, again, kind of concentrating where the main forces for Scrat are holding. And Scrat, speaking of which, trying to just collapse this defensive position that Blinchik is trying to establish. And for UEF, they have the advantage in the defense department with all of the T2, T3 shields, the T2, T3 PD and shields and all that. They're just more tanky. In the UEF, that's kind of like their main thing, is they're tanky, especially with those Perseus that are now on the front lines. I don't see any Titans, very interestingly, even though you would kind of presume that most players go from Titans to Perseus, but some do skip that because the Perseus is just so good. Radar system offline. Second one over there. Missile launchers online. That's going to start to provoke Blinchik's forces and try to get him to engage Scrat. Of course, Scrat has to be a little bit careful because if there is a decent amount of Perseus here, he could get one tapped. He does have stealth and nano, but he still has to be careful. Blinchik cannot see him unless he gets vision on him. He doesn't have an Omni yet, so that stealth can't be nullified. I don't think anybody has T2 radar system yet. Oh, there's one back here, but that's way further back than I would expect it to be. I kind of expected it either be over here or even this one right there. But it does look like the forces started to make an attack and then thought better of it and fell back. We do see a little bit of a counterattack down the middle, or just forces holding position. And we do see Scrap pushing him with his commander. There's a couple of Perseus in there. Blinchik still can't see him. Of course, if he's paying attention to this section of the map, he will see him just for a brief moment. Perseus unload and deal some damage to the commander. Of course, he is at 3-star veterancy and nano, so 100 hit points a second almost. Is able to tank a little bit more shots, but he is going to have to start falling back as his Perseus are able to really rip hit points off very, very quickly. He has half of his hit points gone, but of course now he has some bricks and some loyalists nearby to help defend that commander. We are sitting at 23 minutes on the clock here. Let's take a look at the game overall so far. Of course, in this style of game, it is a 1v1 until somebody dies. There's no other players, so it couldn't be like a 2v1 or 6v5 or whatever. It is just an all-out quote-unquote free-for-all because there's only 2 players, so technically it is, but technically it isn't. But let me know down in the comments who you think is going to currently win this game. Again, as a reminder, Blinchik almost at 200 mass income. Scrat is almost at 160, so about a 30 to 40 mass advantage for Team 1's Blinchik. Keep saying Team 1, but that's just kind of stuck in my head at this point. But let me know down in the comments who you think is going to currently win. And if you haven't done so already, like the video and subscribe to the channel. And of course, as always, thank you so very much for watching. And Scrat is being bombarded by those Perseus, but the Perseus overestimate their power and get wiped out by those bricks and those loyalists. Mainly just loyalists. They have EMP weapons, and it makes attacking a little bit less effective. They also, when they die, they just explode with EMP ions, whatever the lore is behind that, and it makes it a little bit more annoying to deal with. It's kind of like the chicken but on steroids. We're like, oh yeah, there's this giant walking unit that when it dies it summons essentially a lightning storm that eviscerates everything nearby, except it's just EMP and only does last a couple of seconds. I think the ion storms, I think it's like 30, maybe it's 45 seconds. I didn't really time it. I think it's at least 30 seconds from what it seems, but I could be wrong. It could be a minute. I don't think a minute seems too long. Somebody please let me know what the exact time is for the ion storm, but I don't really know. Next time I cast a game with a chicken, I'll try to roughly time it. If I remember, that is the thing. Sometimes I do forget what happened or what I say in casts, and then some viewers will comment about it. And I'm like, did I say that? I think I said that. And with all of the casts that I do, it's kind of hard to keep track of, okay, this game was this day, and these were, I think, who was in it, and just trying to remember everything does become difficult. But I do appreciate people's patience with me as I try to remember all of the casts that I cast. But of course, these Perseus are going to just fall back with the missile launchers bombarding them. And of course, even with some spearheads online, the Loyalists have missile redirect systems on board, which means, I mean, missiles, I mean, they are still effective, but they're not as effective. You can see there are some that kind of have a huge arc to them. You can see that one just got redirected and goes, nope, go the other way, please, thank you. And of course, there is a little bit of a refresh time or cooldown time for that redirect, but look at that. Look at all those yellow dots moving in, trying to go after those Loyalists, and then they get immediately redirected. So these forces from Blinchik will have to engage with point-blank accuracy. Those Perseus and those Titans and everything else need to be called for to deal with that. You can see that the spearheads are actually constantly moving, so that way when the missiles are redirected, they're not completely annihilated. Loyalists moving in to intercept, just eviscerate a Loyalist trying to assist. There are some PD nearby, and Janus over top targeting the shield, going after all the engineers, building more PD, but the shield protects them for the time being. So many missiles over here. And this is on 0 speed. That is a lot of missiles. Each spearhead launches 4 at a time. You can see this one is going to be killed by his own missile. Ooh, that's got to hurt. It's got to hurt. Looks like most of the action in the West has kind of died down. And there is an Omni online, so Blinchik does have a nice idea of what, I mean, say a third of the map or a fourth of the map roughly looks like. Primarily, his focus, of course, is any sort of avenues of attack. Currently, we have Scrat just walling off this section, so he doesn't really have to worry about that as much. And, of course, he is throwing some artillery shells at this little buildup of units over here. We see P-Gens being built. Air Scouts over top, just getting a nice little view. T3 Air is online as well for Scrat. T3 Air is also online for Blinchik. I don't see that many ASFs, mainly just interceptors and a ton of Air Scouts. Blinchik is of the mind of, I need to know what's going on. And there are bricks inbound. And Blinchik's definitely got to know that they're inbound. Yet he can see the radar signatures. And he's definitely knowledgeable about the game to know they're probably either Wagners or bricks, because those are the only two units that stay underneath the surface for the Cyberns. We do see that the eastern side has collapsed. The comm of Scrat has fallen back into the water there. And those bricks are inbound. They're being scorched by those Janus. And of course, the units walk into the flames, so they still take that AoE lingering damage. And most of those bricks actually are called back. Some of them continue to push in because he's just consigned them to their fate. Maybe he can get a T2 mix or something out of it. But unfortunately, there's just so much damage. It's really not going to make a difference. Interceptors trying to well intercept. And this group of interceptors here for Blinchik absolutely just hooks around them and eviscerates all those interceptors. And that is going to be a win here for Team 1's air power. But more of them do come in to assist. But again, there's not really that many ASF or any at all that I can see currently. And that is a win for the air for Team 1. Sorry for Blinchik. I keep saying Team 1. I'm probably going to keep saying Team 1. I'm probably going to keep saying it until I stop casting games, which is at this point never, until the servers die or something. That's probably when I will be forced to stop. Hopefully it never comes to that, but of course stuff does happen, so there's no way that you can just prepare for any scenario, because any scenario could exist. You know, World War III could start tomorrow, or the end of world hunger could be tomorrow, or whatever the case may be. Those percentages are unlikely, but you know, it's the probability does exist. It is low, but it does exist. We do see more Janus inbound, just trying to just soften up all of these rhinos, and they're just being bombarded. Where is the flak? Where is the AA? We do see some ASFs now online for Scrat. They'll deal with those Janus, but the damage is done. Those units are being baked alive in those tanks, and they are not feeling well. I always thought that the Rhino looked eerily familiar to kind of the M1 Abrams tank that the US has. I mean, instead of a dual cannon, it's a single cannon, but it's kind of like that. I don't know how to describe it. It's not like a boxy shape, but it does have some edges to it. Kind of, I mean, it's not like the pillar. Let's see if I can get a picture of the pillar, or image of the pillar. Let's see. I mean, it's not as long. The AM1 Abrams is more of a, it's not necessarily a box, but it's not as elongated. It's kind of, I mean, I guess it is a box, but it's not a cube, and it's not really like a long rectangle. It's kind of a mixture of the two. Anyway, we do see all of these forces now breaking through the wall section over here. It's just Lobo, so not a huge concern. I don't know units can pass through there. I don't suggest it just because it's so, not treacherous, but annoying to deal with. We do see the main force is coming in, and of course this is a bottleneck. So if Scrat had built a lot of defenses over here, he could easily just corner them and rip them apart. But the fact that these units have constantly been moving gives Blinchik the advantage in being able to just at least break through that kill box for now. We do see there are some bricks inbound. There are some Percy's here. There are mainly just Team 1 Lobos and some Spearheads, so mainly the indirect fire units, not the direct fire units, and more, of course, Loyalists inbound to assist. Not as many as the bricks, but there are some just to deal with all of those Spearheads. And 32 minutes on the clock here. Are we seeing anything spicy? We see additional air grids have been started by Blinchik, and nothing really spicy here for Scrat. Looks like additional air grid, and that is about it. Going for an Omni down there. So he's going to see probably up to where those units are sitting, if that. Let's see, he's at 93%. I clicked on it a couple seconds sooner than I probably needed to. But that is the Omni. There it is. So you can see pretty much the entire map, and the Omni does go right to about here. So no, he won't see them entirely, especially if there's a stealth field generator nearby, but at least he can see them for now, so that is better than nothing. He's able to respond a lot better. But again, definitely this spot would have been a lot better for the Omni. But that's just my 2 cents, of course. Who am I to criticize somebody who's a 1600 or even an 1800 essentially in this game? But again, I'm allowed to have my own opinion. That's why, you know, I cast the games that I do, and hopefully everybody does enjoy my commentary. And I love reading your comments and your opinions, and some of them are similar and some of them are not. And I do love that there is, you know, a discussion that happens. That's the main thing I do love about responding, is that there's usually something that we're talking about, oh, this player did this, or this player shouldn't have done this, and that kind of thing. I do love that, because not only it feels like it makes me better at the game, but it makes everybody else better at the game in that discussion of tactics and unit usage and all of that sort of thing. I did. No, that is what this small section is. No bricks, no capes, except this is no bricks moving in, or no Wagners either. But this just amount of firepower emanating from all these bricks, the Percy's trying to keep them back, and a lot of engineers called to just scoop up reclaim. But because these bricks fire so quickly, they're able to deal with a lot of smaller, weaker units. That is the disadvantage of the Percy, where they deal a lot of damage initially, and then it's a reload, and then they fire again. So there's essentially a cooldown period, whereas the bricks can just pump out shot after shot. And yeah, each individual shot is weaker, but if the units don't have a lot of HP, then you don't have to deal or not overload, but I had this last time where I tried to think of the word, and then somebody reminded me what it was, and then I forgot what it was. But you don't do as much overload, overclock, overcharge, what's that word for it? It's where you deal more damage than is necessary. I know there's a word for it because I've definitely heard it. Just can't think of it off the top of my head for some reason. But Scrat is completely just falling in the eco department. Blinchik 600 mass per second, 35 minutes. And Scrat sitting at less than 300, so almost a 3-to-1 advantage. That's about like 2.5 or so right now. But almost a 3-to-1 advantage in the mass income for Blinchik. And you can see that just with the hordes of units that are just amassing over here. This is on Scrat's side of the map, and these units are just hanging out. I mean, there's a decent amount of Percys, but they're mainly just Strikers and Lobos with a couple of Parashields. And over here in the east, contrast that with definitely a similar amount of Percys, a lot of PD, a couple of Shields and Lobos, and not as many Strikers, but they're mainly just Lobos. There are a lot of bricks here, to be fair, but that is a large group of units. If Scrat is not careful, they can easily storm the gates and completely wipe him out and force him to control K. Because if his main base goes up, that's essentially game. Because even if he has this force up here, that won't be enough to pierce Blinchik's defenses, especially with that mass discrepancy per second. Don't see anything. He's also going for a Quantum Gateway and an SMD just to protect himself against nukes and scale his eco. Even more, he has a first SMD online, going for a second one as a backup. We do see his comm is over here. The only thing I will point out is that he is kind of vulnerable to a huge bombardment from either T3 artillery in terms of mobile or just strat bombers, because if just a bunch of strat bombers or gunships come in, yeah, he has a couple of AA emplacements, but there's only a couple of shielding, and that only lasts for so long, so just has to be careful with how long he sits there. I felt like he should just kind of, not necessarily hide in the water, but just kind of fall back at least a little bit. But he has a lot of air scouts, and this is giving him tons of vision. You can see just constantly getting visual information. And that's the one thing that, I do forget a lot of times, especially when I do go back to play this game once in a while, is that I don't see everything. I don't have full vision as an observer. As a player, I get whatever I can see and then whatever icons I get from radar. So I don't get to really just take in the sights, and him having constant air scouting all around the map gives him that vision constantly, kind of gives him a nice bigger overview of the map. You can see it looks like these units are falling back. Blinchik does not want to engage on this side of the map, and it does look like now it's about a 2-to-1 advantage for mass income. But still, Blinchik is doing very, very well for that eco. I wonder what he's going to put it all to. He could go for artillery, he could go for an early nuke, he could go for, I mean, early being air quotes, but he could go for a bunch of different things. Let's see what he goes for. I mean, if he goes for satellites, I mean, he is a UEF, so he can do that. They are really useful. I mean, you've probably seen my game, or not game, but the game I casted yesterday, where there's just an absolute horde of them. Which, again, they're very funny to watch, but I like watching I don't know what it is, but I like watching artillery more than I like watching satellites. That's just my personal preference. But satellites are very, very useful, especially with the Omni sensor on board, and you can't target the satellite. Oh, it's just so good. We do see some power reserves are depleted here for Blinchik. His shields fell offline for a second, but looks like he's trying to get that a little bit more balanced. Of course, he has a lot of mass fabs, reducing the cost of those SACUs. And probably needs to just go for one more P-Gen, and he should be fine. Oh, he needs to go for a couple P-Gens. Now, you can see that with that energy discrepancy, Scrat is coming back up in the the mass income discrepancy, but once he fixes that, it will go right back to what it was. But now tons of Percy's online, and of course assisting units just constantly keeping Scrat back here. We see a lot of ASF here, so the one thing he is winning in is the air game. We see Scrat is sitting at almost 50 ASFs versus Blinchik's 32, so it's about a 3-to-5. And just look at all the spy planes. Oh, sorry, air scouts and spy planes. He has more air scouts than he has spy planes. Or sorry, yeah, more air scouts than he has. Sorry, ASF, which is just a lot, a lot of air scouts. And it does look like Scrat has added a lot more flak to his army, at least this one down here, so he's able to deal with just some roaming units. And there are more bricks making a play, and he's actually split his brick force, some going west, some going east, some trying to shore up defenses over here. There are just more and more Percys. No Titans. Very surprised to not see Titans in this mix at all. In the west here, a couple of mexes might be under threat here. One is definitely going to go down. There are some Percys and some gunships waiting for those bricks to arrive. We see that they are trying to just slow Blinchik's roll over here. And these bricks just trying to just stay positive, keep moving. The amount of just artillery making it very difficult to just go after all these Percys, because essentially it's just cannon fodder distracting a couple shots, and a couple shots per second can make the difference between a couple of T3 units surviving or being destroyed. We see in the west no engagement as of yet. It's bricks moving in, going after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 T3 mechs. This is going to be 6 here pretty shortly. This will help Blinchik with his power reserves though, but he's going to lose some mass income. This is a huge target that could easily be taken out. There's the mass fab ring. There it goes. That was 520 mass a second that Blinchik lost as well. So that eco discrepancy is being not cut in half, but it's definitely closing the gap here for Scrat, and that's mainly because he's denied a lot of mass income, and that's 27 mass, of course, per second per T3 mix that's ringed, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's call it 25 mass per second. That's 150 plus the 20. That's 170 plus throw in another 12 mass, so almost 200 mass per second that Blinchik just lost per second, and that really, really just slows down the construction of everything that he's working on. He has to pause some projects, work on other things, deal with this, that, the other thing. And this army in the east, though, is still progressing and is getting very close to Scrat's position. He's sitting in the water. He might have to come out, but that is a lot of Percys to worry about. Blinchik currently sitting at 18 of them right here. That could one-tap that commander. So Scrat needs to be very careful if he does poke his head out of the water, because that will be a kill if he is not careful enough. It does look like these units might be making some sort of moves. but there's a lot of units to deal with, and of course this avenue is just blocked off by a bunch of walls and PD and other Percies. So really, he's forcing the engagement for Scrat to be right here, and he's sitting on the best side of things because he's not sitting in the middle. He's sitting on the other side, so these units have to bottleneck and then push out, and those bigger units, pathfinding is a pain. I mean, even T1 units are a pain in large numbers, but especially in that narrow valley, he's using the map to his advantage, which is great because he's able to just use the map, something you can't change, to your advantage. Scrat did emerge from the water, and he's staying very close to it. He's not poking out his head for long. Gets a shot or two in, falls back underneath. There are some gunships over here targeting the AA, trying to again allow them to go after all of these Percies. It does look like these forces are going to retreat, and there are now forces starting to reclaim as well as just build, and isolate Scrat on this southeastern corner. And really look at the map control past 10 or so minutes. It used to be about 55-45 in favor of Blinchik. It is now at least 60-40, if not 70-30, given the fact that this southwestern corner is kind of just debunked because there's really nothing there except a couple of mexes. This northeastern corner, not as bad, but still kind of debunked. And the water doesn't really add much. So really, it's about a 70-30 split with map control. And that's a lot of Percies over here too. I can see them building up. There are currently 57 on the map, and in this grouping there are 35. So 2/3 of those Percies are over here. That could be a game-winning move if Blinchik decides to push those in. He's going to probably hold them for now because, again, it's the issue of pathfinding, and it takes a couple of minutes to probably traverse that and whatnot. There is an experimental online. It is a Monkey Lord. I think that's the first one of the game. 43 minutes. First experimental built. Just goes to show you that 1v1s are played. What was that? Sir, are you building a Maver? Sir, this is a 1v1, a ladder match, and he's building a Maver. He has a lot of kennels. Oh, look, he's starting a shield too. Very, very smart. I love that. Builds a shield, has a lot of pigeons over here, but has a shield to protect most of those kennels and that Maver. Very, very smart move. That way, if there's any sort of tricky plays that Scrat does pull, that at least some of the initial damage will be just negated. And I think the game has kind of quieted down a little bit, so I'm going to speed it back up just a little bit so we can see what our players are up to, at least a little bit more. That Monkey Lord looks like it might just go through the middle. Looks like it might try to do a nice little hook maneuver. If it goes west, that thing is dead instantly. There's no way that thing survives anything long term. So the only real play is for Scrat to push this eastern line, but there's a lot of units being thrown together. That is a lot of engineers. A lot of little drones. And that Maver is going, I mean, it is +2. It's going decently fast. It's almost at 10%, and it is currently now at 10% done. So I suspect maybe 5 or so minutes we'll see the Maver completed, roughly, if that trend line continues. And again, brick walls pushing forward, but now there's Ravagers, T3 PD, being able to blitz down a lot of bigger units. You can see, of course, some of the shots miss, but that's just due to the fact that these units can move a little bit faster than that PD really wants. And now we're going to see these bricks escort this Monkey Lord. And is that Monkey Lord going to go for the base? Like I said, there are still more units. Not as many now. They're mainly being concentrated over here. And there's a ton of Percies now over here going to block any sort of avenue of attack that way. And that Monkey Lord is going to go for it, but the bricks are not soaking up the damage. Once the Percies are able to be in range, that Monkey Lord might just be one tap, but the Ravagers might just do it in anyways. Oh, that's not feeling good for that Monkey Lord. It needs a rank and veterancy. Percies moving in from the north, and there it goes. Monkey Lord just almost evaporated by those Ravagers. Percies did help, but it was mainly those Ravagers ripped out probably 70% of its hit points. And these bricks will be forced to retreat. Comso sitting in the water, and more bricks being added. And it's just partly due to the fact that Blinchik has so much more disposable income than Scrat does. I mean, it's not a 2v1 anymore, but it's close. It's almost 900 to 500. It's 9 to 5 essentially. And there are a couple of bricks trying to just take out some sort of eco. There's a T3 mix that's, you know, single ringed, and there are Percy's moving in to intercept. I love the fact that some bricks are like, wait, hold on, I didn't mean to go this way, and why am I up here now? Why am I up here? I don't want to be up here, but I'm able to target it. You, sir, are going to just fall off the cliffside if you're not careful. That's 27 mats a second. That Blinchik isn't getting back for a while, but I mean, still, Scrat is holding on, especially because he's really down in the mass department. How's that Mavor going? It's in the yellow, so it's over 25% and about to cross the 50% mark. And there it is, 4,000 out of 8,000 hit points. It is 50% done, 48 minutes. So I think I overestimated its completion time. It's probably going to be about 52 minutes or so. And again, no real desire to attack for Blinchik. He's being very defensive. Well, he's building the Mavor, so he's being defensive on purpose. He wants Scrat to either be defensive, or even if he attacks, he knows he won't break through at least significantly to warrant worrying about that Mavor. So as long as Blinchik can keep that Mavor online, that's game for him. That's a win. He does have some, Scrat does have some gunships, and there is a bug. Interesting. I don't really like the bug. I prefer just building T3 gunships at that point, but there, you know, there are places for the bug. That's concerning, though. That is definitely concerning here. If Blinchik is not careful, he could be sniped. He's currently not underneath any sort of shield protection, but does have his personal shield and a T3 engineering suite, and not at 1-star veterancy, so 34,000 hit points. It's a chunk of hit points, but I think it's 3,000 damage per bomb. So what is that? 12 bombs. And there's definitely more than 12 bombers. So Blinchik has to be very careful. Looks like he's launching some sort of attack. He's calling back some of his units. Maybe he's having them go around. Possibly. It looks like there's a move order. It looks like that's for the air scouts. Looks like the Lobos are now making their approach. A couple of rhinos being obliterated by them, though. So Blinchik has to be on top of that. He is sending his gunships over there. Bricks over here. They're trying to stay together. You can see clump, clump, clump. And, you know, AoE, very effective with dealing with clumps of units. It's just really hard to get to this base because there's a lot of shielding. If there's a crab, that might be enough to crack the shielding. There is a bug, though. And, of course, the attack has started to commence. Looks like Blinchik's only sending in his T1 artillery, his cannon fodder units. The Mavor is almost done, 51 minutes. I think I was correct the second time about the 52-minute mark thing. But the bricks have just full sent it against this PD and Percy base. There are a couple of T3 artillery units also assisting. Shield are going down, but those bricks are losing steam. Looks like they're kind of congregating right here. They need to just full send it. If they're going to go for it, go for it. Because the longer those PD are online, the more damage they'll do. Blinchik completes the experimental artillery, 51.5 minutes. And look at the glorious overcompensating artillery of that UEF nonsense that is Blinchik's just giant artillery piece. And, oh, we got some movement. Those, oh, that's not good. 25, 2 squadrons of bombers plus a bug. Does he know where the commander is? Yes, he does. The ASFs are being sent in. I think he's trying to find the ASFs for him, and they are going to engage. And that will buy a little bit of time for those strat bombers. The bug is inbound. That battle over there doesn't matter. This is where it matters. The artillery has started to fire its cannon, but those bombers are going for the kill. Oh, you need more shielding there, Blinchik. It's not going to feel good. Strat bombers are releasing their payload. Shields are down. Blinchik tries to move out of the way, and he is gone. Team 2 Scrat wins the game. And had that artillery piece from Blinchik been online 5 minutes sooner, that probably would have been game. I don't see... Was that the first shot that was fired? I think that's the first shot that was fired, so not even... you can kind of see the shell right there. Not even one shot has landed. At least I don't see anything. No, I don't see any big giant marks. The shielding looks like it's perfectly fine. So that is a really close game here. Scrat went for the kill. Blinchik went for the annihilation play with the Mavor, and it played out in Scrat's favor. So obviously, with a choice in 1v1 for MVPs, there's legitimately only two options, and one player died and one player didn't. So of course it's going to go to Scrat. He was the underdog in this game. He had less eco pretty much the entire time, but he went for one play. He put everything on one play, and it worked out for him. He got the kill. Had, I think, Blinchik fallen back to his main base somewhere up here, maybe that wouldn't have worked. There is a decent amount of Strat Bombers still alive, though. I mean, out of the 25 that came in, 12 of them survived the initial bombing run, and there's still more AA firing at them. The bug is almost killed as well, so it possibly would have been enough had Blinchik's commander fled to his main base. Well, let me know down in the comments what you felt about the match. Of course, I don't normally cast 1v1s, but hopefully everybody enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know down in the comments. I really, really do appreciate the time and attention you give to my videos. So thank you so very much. And again, let me know down in the comments what you felt about this match or any other of my matches. Whatever I said, whatever the case may be, please comment down below your thoughts, and I will respond to them. Of course, thank you so very much for watching, and I will see all of you in the next one.